Can 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run every day really make you one of the strongest anime characters of all time? No, of course not. As always, there's a secret reason behind Saitama's ridiculous strength, one that sets him above the rest as an ascended human. But first we must understand how Saitama even got here, because if not for his upbringing, he'd have never reached the point we're all familiar with. Growing up, he was a nobody. He'd sit at home all day, sleep in, miss homework, and get bullied. He believed he didn't have what it took to live in society. All he ever did was lose, leading him to wonder if he'd even be able to live his life as a weakling. A few years later, in the face of Crablante, Saitama admitted that he no longer had a will to live. He was but an unemployed failure who could no longer be bothered to run away. However, as soon as he saw a kid in danger, a childhood dream of his took over instinctively, being a hero. And so, despite it being disaster level Tiger, something only an A-class hero should be capable of taking down, Saitama fought and won. Subsequently, he was struck with a new lease of life. He had purpose again. He was born to be a superhero. Thus he began the truly grueling training regime that we've all tried at least once in our lives. Don't even lie, you've at least thought about it. But again, how does this suddenly allow you to destroy a planet with a sneeze? Well, it all begins with God. When he shaped humanity, he bestowed upon them limiters. They were there to prevent people from going beyond what they were capable of, as a means to stop them becoming overwhelmed with power that they could not control, which would ultimately lead them to spiral down a life of mindless rampage until they became a monster. Furthermore, Psychos revealed to us that to break these limiters, one must overcome death multiple times. Once this has been repeated enough, they will end up with explosive growth. This was actually something Dr. Genus himself tried to replicate, hence the creation of Zombie Man, for example. However, Saitama himself said, to train your spirit, never use a heater in the winter or air conditioning in the summer. It'll almost kill you early on and you'll consider taking a day off. But I wanted to be a strong hero, so I persevered every day until I vomited blood. Even when I felt so heavy and could barely move, I still did my squats. Even when my arms made weird popping sounds, I still did my push-ups. This was Saitama's turning point that allowed him to conquer death and level up his human spirit and become a limitless being. Now what does that mean exactly? What kind of power does it give him? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to explain. It's vital to understand that a Mai Mask revealed that humans are considered constant environmental beings. This is due to the many eras that they have evolved through in the world of One Punch Man. To begin with, like our own world, people fought in world wars over land until the population decreased to the point where they prioritized helping the future generations, which was dubbed the First Era of Change. The aftermath of this event, however, lingered, bringing us to the Second Era, where humanity was forced to migrate to a single landmass for survival thanks to the severe global warming leading to a mass rise in sea level, bringing us onto the new and current era of One Punch Man, one where humans have become over-reliant on outside help such as heroes stunting their own growth. But as we've established, Saitama is built different. He made sure he let no outside occurrences aid in his training. It's also probably why Blast, for example, told Tatsumaki to never rely on the help of anybody else, which helped give her the mental fortitude to reject God's advances. In fact, this is a common theme between all characters who saw through the disguise of God. We spoke about Tatsumaki, and Blast is clearly another, but Garou too was somebody else that had the willpower to turn him down, even if he did still accidentally accept his deal somewhat. You see, Garou was somebody else who began their journey to break his limiter. In his battle against Royal Ripper and Bug God, Garou's body experienced the point of death many times, forcing his body to undergo a change. However, unlike Saitama, who'd always dreamt of being a hero deep down, Garou was the opposite. His dark intentions began his spiral into becoming a rampaging monster, as Dr. Genus mentioned, thus leaving Saitama to become the first human to take a step in the new era. This was confirmed by Fubuki during his battle with Tatsumaki, where she refers to him as an ascended human after witnessing his power in the battle with Garou, which is when we learned the exact ability ability Saitama had gained from breaking his limiter. You see, Garou wanted to become absolute evil, thus he needed to become the strongest being on the planet. Luckily for him, he was skilled in mimicking the technique of others, as seen when he not only mastered Bang's martial arts, but even Blast's abilities, something that Saitama himself actually has proved to be able to do too. However, the man Garou needed to copy the most was Saitama. He believed that by taking and refining his power, he could finally achieve his goal. The problem was that the Caped Baldy wasn't fighting all out yet, and so Garou needed to find a way to draw out Saitama's true power. That's when Genos came to mind. He knew the S-Class hero was Saitama's pupil and ultimately best friend, and so Garou brutally murdered him on the spot in front of him and everybody else. This gave the hero hunter exactly what he wanted though, as Saitama immediately retaliated with a serious punch so powerful it would have annihilated the entire planet. And so whilst this gave Garou equal power to face the Caped Baldy, there was a catch. He realised this after noticing Saitama became filled with rage following the death of Genos. During their little intergalactic space battle, the hero hunter pointed something out. Despite Garou being able to counter Saitama's punches with an equal amount of power, the very next one would always, without fail, be stronger. And that was because of the true nature of Saitama's power. By breaking his limiter, he had essentially gifted himself endless growth. His power had no number. This is why Child Emperor's power reading machine failed to read Saitama's number and in fact broke, because it's limitless. Saitama's power simply just scales to that of his opponent and subsequently continues to grow on from there. Thus, Garou was being left in the dust with every attack. What was even worse for Garou's sake was that killing Genos to achieve power was actually what made him lose the fight. The only one who truly gained an increase in power then was Saitama, as there was no longer anybody left on the planet that could even begin to fathom the amount of power Saitama had unlocked. This is even illustrated in the manga by helping us visualize Saitama's rapid growth by having him pull away from Garou more and more with each passing second. And that's because there is a way to multiply Saitama's growth even more and even faster than usual. In that moment against Garou, whilst wallowing in the pain of losing Genos, Saitama felt an upsurge of emotion he had never experienced before. Now, remember what Saitama said you had to train. An indomitable human spirit is one of the keys to achieve this state of being. Those with discipline, ideals and determination can continue their natural path of evolution as a human. This is the main motif of One Punch Man, strengthening your human spirit. King's speech to Saitama was a great example of this. Despite having the power to finally fulfill his childhood dream of becoming a superhero, Saitama felt all alone. Where he was once depressed because he was weak, he was now depressed because he was too strong. However, King told him that he'd never fulfill his true potential without understanding his human side. There is one major downside to this though. The more in touch one becomes with their humanity, the more emotional they can become. This is just part and parcel of being human. It's not black or white, but a grey area between being both happy and sad. It's the cycle of life, but it's what's helped us reach this point, because if we were just emotionless beings, then we'd be no better than just rampaging monsters. Thus, seeing his friend die made Saitama feel something he'd never felt before, which despite being sad was truly helping strengthen his human spirit, allowing him to grow even stronger than ever before. And it's not like this is really anything new for him when you think about it. Just cast your mind back to some of the most iconic moments where Saitama one-shots his enemies. It's when his emotions suddenly skyrocket at the thought of missing out on things like a bargain at the supermarket or forgetting to put the trash out. The thing is though, whilst Saitama breaking his limiter may have saved the planet on numerous occasions, it's also the reason it's under attack more and more by monsters. This is because Saitama is actually summoning God to their dimension without even realizing it. In his battle against Garou, the two had already begun tearing a rift in his seal, allowing him to break through. Furthermore, Saitama displayed the ability to be one of the very few outside of Cosmic Garou and Blast to actually be able to understand the flow of all energy and the behavior of all things in the universe to manipulate the cosmos when he performed time travel. Now, if you want to learn every instance that God appeared in the story, or perhaps every time Saitama used his true power, then check out the videos on your screen. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.